Hey everyone, here's one for the annals of mostly peaceful protest. Hey everyone, I'm Rich Lowry of National Review, and that was an Islamic terrorist, or I'll throw in alleged just for formality's sake, alleged Islamic terrorist throwing a bomb at a protest organized by far-right provocateur Jake Lang in Manhattan. Now, Jake Lang is not my cup of tea at all, but he obviously does not deserve to be murdered, nor, by the way, does anyone around him, whether his fellow protesters, other bystanders, counter-protesters, cops, whatever. But that's what we almost saw last weekend, and we once again have seen how the left just can't process the fact that there is so much violence and radicalism on its own side. Foremost among the people turning a blind eye to this, Zohran Mamdani, mayor of New York City. Want to get back to him in a minute, but first of all, let's go in detail into this incident and how it went down. Completely shocking. Here is this attack from Jake Lang's perspective.
Whoa! 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 What the f***? That was a fucking bomb.
Now that's harrowing stuff, and this was a peaceful protest. Now, it was against Muslims supposedly taking over New York City, but they have their right to express this point of view, even if you oppose it, and to attack it violently is outrageous and wrong. And here's the incident from another perspective. Here is a very stereotypical New York City leftist on his bullhorn, and look what happens.
We were born and raised in New York, and we want everyone here to stay in New York. You don't get to come from outside and then tell everyone else.
Now that guy apparently with Bullhorn, a little bit of an influencer, but there he is saying everyone is welcome in New York City. And in that very moment, a terrorist is using his back as a launching pad to throw a bomb in an attempted act of mass murder. Here is a still of that moment. It's hard to get a more perfect metaphor than that. Here's the progressive saying we're all extremely welcome, and he's being taken advantage of. He would have been one of the first ones killed by this bomb if it actually had gone off. Here's another perspective right after that very moment.
Yo, this nigga threw a bomb, bro. Yo, he threw a bomb. Yo, did he throw a bomb, bro?
Nice.
That stinks. That stinks.
Hey,
Yo, did he just throw an Allah Akbar bomb, bro?
Yeah, I think that was an Allah Akbar bomb, bro. And here's another one of the counter-protesters acting as though something terrible had happened to one of the bombers when he was actually apprehended by the police. I'm not sure terrorists actually worry about having emergency contacts very much. Now, there are two bombs thrown at this incident. One we saw hurled towards Jake Lang off of the back of that counter-protester. Then there was another one on the sidewalk at the feet of some cops. Look at a still of that. That just brings home what an atrocity this could have been. That picture's like something out of a still out of a Batman movie or something. Now, these two alleged terrorists apparently built these bombs, and then there was another one found on the scene using something called Mother of Satan, a volatile explosive using TATP. International terrorists have used this for years now. Now, how does the Mayor Mamdani, respond? Well, this is his initial tweet. Yesterday, white supremacist Jake Lang organized a protest outside Gracie Mansion rooted in bigotry and racism. Such hate has no place in New York City. It is an affront to our city's values and the unity that defines who we are. What followed was even more disturbing. Violence at a protest is never acceptable. The attempt to use an explosive device and hurt others is not only criminal, it is reprehensible and the antithesis of who we are. I want to thank the brave men and women of the NYPD who acted quickly to keep New Yorkers safe. So he name checks the far right guy and leads with the protest as if this were really the terrible thing that was happening, and then gets into the violent response. There is no moral equivalence between these two things. The protest was a peaceful event, and the attempted bombing was an attempted act of mass murder. He doesn't name the bomb throwers, and he doesn't call it terrorism, just going to how he's fundamentally uncomfortable with the idea that these sort of people with whom he has sympathy as fellow Muslims could be violent extremists. We had similar reactions from other Democrats in New York City. The Manhattan Borough president issued forth with this statement on X initially. White Christian nationalists led a roaming trail of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism today in Manhattan's Upper East Side at Gracie Mansion, where they targeted our mayor with an incendiary device. Now, he went on eventually to correct the record, but it just shows the reflexes to believe only the far right is capable of violence and to have difficulty processing any other form of terrorism, no matter how awful or prominent it is. What, by the way, do these people need to do to lose their status as supposed protesters? Here's a headline from a local outlet in New York City. Mayor Mamdani was not at Gracie Mansion when protesters lit devices. Protesters lit devices is quite the way to say terrorists threw bombs. Usually headline writers, they try to state things in the most sensationalistic way. That's part of their craft. But here you have the headline writers resorting to euphemism to state things as mildly as possible. Now, protesters, they chant, they march, they hold signs, they don't throw bombs. Once they're throwing bombs, that makes them something else categorically. And by the way, lit devices doesn't tell you what was happening here. You could light a sparkler. Sparkler is a kind of device. Certainly a cherry bomb is a device. They didn't just light devices. They threw bombs meant to kill and maim dozens of people. Now, another takeaway here is there's an immigration angle to this story. These guys, these alleged bomb throwers, were not immigrants themselves, but they were children of immigrants. Here's a tweet from Bill Malugin of Fox News. I'm told by federal law enforcement sources that New York City IED suspect Amir Balat's parents are both from Turkey and were naturalized into U.S. citizens in 2017, while Ibrahim Kayumi's parents are both from Afghanistan, mom naturalized in 2009, dad naturalized in 2004. So we've seen a number of examples like this in these kind of cases where you have the children of immigrants actually reverse assimilating. Despite all this country has offered them and their parents, they find it not just not alluring, they find it so profoundly alienating that they go to an extreme version of a hostile culture. So this is something to remember when we're told the bedtime story that assimilation in America is always successful. It is usually successful, even often successful, but not always successful. But I doubt the left will ever admit that when it has so much trouble just acknowledging the violence problem we see emanating from its own side and from radical Islam. I'm Rich Lowry. Over and out.